Hey guys, it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I look different.
Okay.
I dressed up today to match the aesthetic of the brand that I'm going to be talking about. I'm so incredibly thrilled about today's video because it's been very much in the works for a long time. Today I'm doing my first ever indie brand spotlight video on one of my favorite new indie brands I wanted to highlight today, which is Oden's Eye. You've seen their products on my channel before, probably in the Soul Mane eyeshadow palette. This is something I talk about fairly frequently, mostly for can we guess which color? Yeah. I first tried out and I think talked about this palette and I want to say like February, maybe March of this year. And then after that the brand reached out to me and asked if I'd like to try pretty much the entire line and share my thoughts. So today's video I'm going to be reviewing literally every single product in the Oden's Eye line. Today's video was sponsored by them, so this video is in partnership with Oden's Eye, but as always I will be giving my full, completely honest thoughts. I had it literally written into the contract that I was allowed to give unminced words about every single product. So in today's video I will be sharing my review on pretty much every single product that they sell, sharing what I think is worth buying, what's worth skipping, talking about the formulations. I also filmed a little tutorial of this look here. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. When the brand first reached out to me, I asked you guys on Twitter like what you wanted to see me review. It was kind of unhelpful because you guys did everything. So in today's video I'll be talking about the eyeshadow palettes. I have the Soul Mane and the Alva eyeshadow palette. The Soul Mane highlighter palette, which I reviewed and actually did a giveaway of on my Instagram, so you might have missed that. The Fruit blushers, which is their line of matte blushes, as well as their Flower blushes, which is their line of dewy, more shimmery blushes. The Alva matte lip stains and the Alva cream lip stains as well. So we have two different finishes of the lip products, and I've been testing these out thoroughly for the past about 2.5 weeks now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. You will see full details of this look in the video later on when I get to the tutorial portion. Today's Dew Fairy, or actually Woodland Dew Fairy, because that's the video today. Today's Dew Fairy of the week is Tara. Thank you so much for having your notification bell on. If you would like to be crowned Woodland Dew Fairy of the week, turn your bell on. It's a good time here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and without further ado, let's get into it. Before we start, I just want to focus on probably my favorite thing about the entire brand, which is their general aesthetic and their background. Oden's Eye is a Swedish brand based in Stockholm. They're cruelty-free, and their entire brand is basically centered around Nordic mythology and the mystical world, which I think is so fresh, so unique, and just so reflected in literally every single product that they have. So when I first reviewed these Soul Mane palettes, I was really obsessed with the outer packaging. Obviously you have this beautiful kind of celestial Nordic mythological design. It's also this really nice kind of brushed cardboard packaging, which obviously is a lot more sustainable than plastic, but just feels really luxurious and weighty, and you can just tell that they put a lot of effort and care into the packaging of these products. So I was really obsessed with the packaging on the Soul Mane palettes first when I tried them, and then when I received the rest of the Oden's Eye makeup line in May, I was just extremely impressed with the little details on everything and how that aesthetic was carried through into the rest of the products. So this is the Alva eyeshadow palette, and this is inspired by like woodland mystical fairies. I don't know if you can see it, I'm going to shift it in the light, but you can see there's this really beautiful like flower type like sheer embossing that's really subtle but really gorgeous. And then on the inside around the mirror, little star details. The boxes that they came in, really beautiful as well, and still have that same level of like care and small detail put into things. I just love appreciating the small things. And then when it comes to the lip stains as well, I really appreciate the differentiation in packaging. So the matte ones have this really beautiful like bone colored cap and then a translucent component with rose gold detailing, whereas the cream lip stains have this really beautiful like almost kind of like silver holographic embossing on it, beautiful blush pink ombre component. So but you guys know I have a very soft spot for brands that have an artistic vision that they carry through in every single aspect of their products. That just really kind of brings it all together, you know? So in the spirit of the Alva palette, which is inspired by fairies, I tried to dress up like a fairy today, but my head is really large, so it barely fit into the wig, so now I have like a brown bun in the back of my head sticking out from underneath the lace of this wig, so it's a mess. We're just gonna pretend that the reason I'm wearing this wig is for the entire inspiration of the video and not for the fact that my natural actual hair looked like trash today. Hey, I don't even know where to start for my review. I think I'm just going to start with what I care about most, which is the eyeshadow palettes. So the Soul Mane palette you've seen me talk about on my channel before. This has been one of my favorite discoveries of the year so far. So I'll flash some looks I posted on Instagram that I've done with this palette. The versatility in here, unmatched. Obviously, my eyes go straight to where everyone else's eyes probably go, which is this beautiful lilac purple. This, by far, one of my favorite like lavender purples in my collection. I really like how this one performs not only as like an accent shade, but also in the crease as well if you need to blend it. it doesn't blend away into nothing, which is really hard to find with this particular hue of purple. Overall though, this palette for me was a really good introduction to the entire formula. I'll talk about the mattes first. In this particular palette, I prefer the mattes over the shimmers, although like both are good, but the mattes, the best way I can describe the matte formula of these shadows is very, very like creamy. It's a very soft, very dimethicone type shadow. And it's just kind of like a denser formula, so I feel like it can pack a lot of color payoff into a very like non-powdery formula. I would say if you're wanting something with a similar level of pigmentation but not as powdery as the Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow formula, you would really enjoy this formula a lot. That formula and pigmentation is kind of what this reminds me of a lot, but a little bit more user-friendly, especially if you don't enjoy working with something that's a little bit less like held together. And then the shimmers in here are actually kind of different from the shimmers in the Alva palette, just because these are a little bit more foiled, whereas these shimmers are a bit softer, with the exception of these two kind of like duochrome shades here. The shimmers in here are really nice and smooth, creamy, apply really nicely on the eyes, and last really, really well throughout the day as well. One of my main problems with especially like softer, less foiled shimmers like this is that they can kind of fade throughout the day and then lose that luster on the eyes. These, I feel like, even though they're not quite as punchy as like a full metallic would be, I still feel like they stay really well on the eyes and don't fade too much. And then the Alva eyeshadow palette, this I believe is their newest eyeshadow palette in their collection. This color scheme actually reminds me quite a bit of the Sailor Moon palette, but in my opinion, formula, far superior. I don't know what they were doing with that formula with the Sailor Moon palette, but
she's trash. I'm not talking about that girl.
It's the same matte formula in my opinion, but I think the shimmers in here are just like a lot more impactful and a lot more metallic. So this is the palette I'm wearing on my eyes right now, and you'll see it demoed later on. I'll also flash some different looks I've done on screen with this one as well. Same great matte formula, but the shimmers in here are a little bit more textured and a little bit more foiled, so on the eyes they catch a lot more light and just bring a lot more impact. My favorite shade is this shade here called Lilac. Some of these actually have a little bit of like a duochrome, maybe not necessarily duochrome, but a little bit more of an iridescent finish. So Lilac doesn't just show up as a straight up like lavender purple, it has a little bit of like a rainbow iridescence running through it. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I just think indie brands are doing the best eyeshadows, like consistently putting out better eyeshadow palettes and better color schemes than most mainstream brands are. Another palette that this actually reminds me a lot of, if you cover up the kind of like yellows down in the bottom, is the Huda Beauty New Nude palette, but obviously a lot less expensive. I forgot to be saying the prices, but the Soul Mane eyeshadow palette is €24.90 and the Alva is $25.90. This brand falls into like my favorite price scheme, which is like kind of like Glossier type middle prices, where it's not like high-end makeup prices, but it's also not drugstore, it's just right in between, and I think that the quality matches that of high-end. Of these two palettes, Alva is definitely my favorite. I just feel like I would get a lot more use out of this one, and I definitely will be using this one very often, especially once I go back to school. I feel like these colors, I can do really subtle eye looks as well as, I mean, whatever this is. So for me, this is actually probably my favorite thing from the brand. That's saying a lot. lines of blushes. They have the fruit and the flower. And again, kind of like the different lip products, you have different packaging to correspond to the different finishes. So the flower blushes, which are a little bit shimmery, have this kind of like lighter, more cool toned pink, whereas the fruit blushes, which are matte, have this kind of like more peachy toned, warm toned pink. Again, it's a small detail, but I think it's worth noting because it would be very easy to just use the same component for both of the formulas, but they don't, and I think that shows that they invested a little bit more into the production of these products rather than just using the same thing. Both of these formulas are $10.90. I'll start with the fruit blushes. So these are the matte blushes. I'm wearing the shade Sweet Peach on my cheeks right now. I will say that these blushes are a little bit more on the pigmented side. With colored cheek products like these, blushes and bronzers, sometimes you don't want them to be super pigmented because obviously they're cheap products. You don't want them to be like on the same caliber of eyeshadows where you have a hard time blending them out. These are really easy to go overboard with. I think it can be very easy to build up a lot of color payoff, where if you like the kind of TikTok strong blush effect that I've been going for lately, I think you'll really like that. But if you like a more subtle blush, you'll probably want to go in with a lighter hand or avoid these. That being said, because they're more pigmented, I feel like you can use less, so therefore go through them a little bit slower. This shade here is called Ripe Peach. This is like my favorite thing for doing blush on the nose because it's perfect. And then the third shade is called Apricot Girl. That I think is perfect for you if you really like a good, just classic nude blush. I don't think it's really apricot. I just think it's kind of like a neutral toned brownie, a little bit on the warm tone side nude. So yeah, I really enjoy the fruit blushes a lot, particularly Sweet Peach. This is just a shade I didn't have in my collection. It's kind of more on the like mauve-y tone side, but it's really hard to find shades like this that don't have like a bubblegum pink undertone. Overall, the way I would describe this formula is very soft, very pigmented, so you do want to be careful if you don't want a ton of blush, but they're just fun to play with and they make me feel like a fairy whenever I put them on. So, oh my god! Dew Fairy of the week. I forgot to do Dew Fairy of the week. Let me film that real quick right now. And then the Alva Flower blushes are the shimmery blush formula. So these I enjoyed a little bit less. And I used to be very partial to matte blushes. Like I used to not like shimmery blushes. I've kind of grown out of that now. I do enjoy some shimmery blushes. This formula for me came on a little bit strong. The shade here I have is called Water Lily. To me, it's this kind of like terracotta, deep, like dusty rose shade, which I think is beautiful. The shimmer is not super pronounced. I would say it doesn't show up like super shimmery on the cheeks, but for some reason I found these a little bit less effortless to blend than the fruit blushes. I don't know why. Usually shimmery blushes are a little bit like more dimethicone and just like easier to blend because the shimmer loosens up the particles. By that I don't mean that these blushes were difficult to blend by any means. I just found that they were a little bit less easy to blend. Oops, less easy to blend than the fruit ones. I still do overall like them. I would say that these are like a 7 out of 10, whereas these are a 9 out of 10 for me. They also have the shade called Sweet Tulip, which is a little bit more on the mauve tone side. Again, really hard to find kind of like cooler tone shades like that. And then Little Jasmine as well, which is kind of on the more browny nude tone side. So those are the different blush formulas. Personally for me, I prefer the fruit blushes, and if you're torn between them, I think that they're both good. You should just go for whatever finish you know you'll use more. Next up is the Soulmane highlighter palette. This is 26.90 euros, I believe. Really beautiful out of packaging. We have the Sun Goddess and the Moon Goddess here. This highlighter palette really is so interesting to me because it looks very tame, but then you swatch them and they're colorful. This is the shade I'm wearing on my cheekbones right now. Of course, I picked the most basic tone shade to wear in the video. There's a pink, a straight up gold, and then a duochrome blue, which you wouldn't really be able to tell by the video itself, but in person this has a really beautiful blue shift. This palette's not really for me, just because you guys know I don't really love colorful highlighters on myself. I just feel like they look really weird on me and I can't pull them off. I love me a good colorful eyeshadow, but for some reason I just need beige on my cheekbones and that's it. So I love this shade up here. These two shades down here are a little bit more on the metallic side, whereas these ones really fine and more pearly. And I used to call myself boring for only liking like champagne or beige tone highlighters, but I don't think that's boring. I think that's just knowing what I like. Time for the lip products. I think this was probably the stuff that I was most excited to test out. The Alva matte lip stains and then the Alva cream lip stains. The matte lip stains I was really interested in. They seem to have a bit of like a velvety, kind of almost blurred effect to them, and the shades are really rich looking. So we have Red Apple, Apricot Girl, Ripe Papaya, Sweet Peach, Dry Dates, which is I think the most unique shade, and it's what I'm wearing on my lips right now, and Perfect Plum. The matte lip stains, I feel like there are two different ways you can really apply these. Number one is that you can wear them like as you would any other matte liquid lipstick. For me, I don't like them that way. I don't think it's just this formula in particular, but I think it's a lot of matte lipsticks. This is a really nice thin formula, which I feel like is really good for having a nice, comfortable matte liquid lipstick. However, the thinner the formula of a matte liquid lipstick is, the more easy it is to kind of get a patchy finish when you apply it, because obviously you're going to be applying it in different thicknesses across your lips. I think that problem is covered right up if you go on top with a gloss, but sometimes I just want to be able to wear the color straight up on my lips. That was a problem I had with the darker shades, but not the lighter shades of the liquid lipstick, so I would avoid applying the darker shades in a full opaque layer and really only doing that with the lighter shades. My favorite way to wear these is actually using them as kind of like a blotted lip effect. So what I did today was I applied a little bit of dry dates on my lips and then just kind of blurred it out. And that, I feel like, is what gives you this really beautiful, seamless, like velvet blurred appearance to the lips. Kind of like the popsicle effect, but I would say that these give a little bit more color payoff so it doesn't look completely whack. So that has been literally like my favorite thing to do, and again, because it's such a thin liquid lipstick formula, it works really, really well to do that and feels like you're not wearing anything on the lips. So those are the matte lip stains. I will say that the darker shades did stain my lips. As the name would imply, it's a lip stain. Product description says it's not going to stain your lips, but in my opinion, if you apply like a full coat, like full colored layer of the colors, it will stain your lips a little bit. So that is, again, I would say something that you need to watch out for in the darker ones, but not the lighter ones as much. The cream lip stains I was very excited to test out because it seemed like something that I feel like a lot of brands don't make, which is a liquid lipstick in a hydrating glossy formula. So again, like the matte ones, there are 6 shades: Miss Canna, Little Jasmine, Sweet Tulip, Water Lily, Lady Camellias, and Poppy Girl. I've been wearing Little Jasmine a lot as like my everyday nude lately in my Instagram stories and gotten a lot of questions on what I'm wearing, so that's this. This formula I think is very unique and very different from the Alpha matte lip stains. I would say this isn't like quite as thin of a formula as the matte ones, but still isn't like super thick and goopy, which is definitely something I was looking out for because it seems to be like a more glossy formula. For me, this is kind of just basically a liquefied lipstick. So imagine like your typical cream bullet lipstick but made into a liquid form and just added a tiny bit of gloss in there. I think that's this. This is a lipstick I could see myself wearing for an entire shift at work without needing to reapply it, first of all, because it's a lip stain. I feel like, again, even though it says it's not going to stain your lips, you do still get a little bit of residual color payoff. So by the end of my shift, usually I look like I haven't had anything on my lips and I just put chapstick on, but I feel like these I would still be able to see a little bit of residual color, which I like. Very, very long wearing for something that's glossy. Glossy lips obviously wear less hardy than mattes do, and as a result you get something that's comfortable to wear but still gives you a lot of color payoff. So of the two formulas, I prefer the glossy ones. Alright, so final thoughts. It was kind of overwhelming. This is my first time ever trying out like an entire line, like the entire offerings from a brand. Obviously, because it's a smaller indie brand, they still have a fairly small offering of products, so it wasn't like trying out Colourpop's entire SKU line. Oh my god, could you imagine? I would say that the standout products for me, the things I think are most worth it, would be the Alva eyeshadow palette. Obviously, this is like my favorite thing from the line. The fruit blushers, particularly in the shade Sweet Peach, this is my favorite. And then Little Jasmine in the Alva cream lip stain. But those are my thoughts on the entire brand. I think this is a really exciting indie brand that I definitely want to keep my eyes on. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Thank you again, huge thank you to Oden's Eye and everybody at the team for not only sending me all these products to test out, but for also being really, really good sponsors and allowing me to give a full open brand review and work with them as a creator, but also maintain my integrity as a reviewer. So I've never done like a full video with a brand before, so this was a very new experience. And I do want to say, obviously, because it's a sponsored video, this is not an unbiased review. I think it's completely impossible to give an unbiased review when you have a relationship with a brand, but I give you my word that it is a completely honest one. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below. Let me know what you're most interested in from this brand. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on. And if you made it to the very end of this video, you get the bonus name. Love you. Bye.
Oh, you got your big twerk. You got your big twerk with the big whims. Are you driving with your big twerk and your big whims? Are you gonna be so big with your big whims?